Hey, it's Tony Brueski, and this is our week in review over the weekend, taking a look back at some of the most compelling conversations and stories that we've covered for you of the last week. Brand new episodes back Monday morning, bright and early, 5 a.m. here on the podcast.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
The sentencing of Lori Vallow Daybell going down. To talk about it with us today is retired FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreek. Robin, I got questions about this. Do you think Lori's religious beliefs, which we do know obviously influenced her action, should they be taken into consideration during the sentencing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I don't really consider her religious beliefs having anything to do with religion. They just have to do about her.
Exactly. Her religion is her, I think. Almost.
Yeah, her religion is a screwdriver she uses to give her what she wants. It really is. So it was ingrained in her religion was ingrained upon her from her upbringing. But because of her upbringing and again, that nature nurture versus nurture balance of her genetics, biology, of a pretty broken brain, as well as her nature part of what she was indoctrinated through her father and her parents with, it's a blend. But she used it as a tool, more not as much as a moral compass, really. Yeah. That's what religion is meant to give people, moral and ethical compasses in life. And she did not use it for that. So I wouldn't say that it should be considered.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You're exactly right. Yeah. It should be a moral compass. That's typically what people use it for. She, on the other hand, it seemed like she went to the store and looked for the most broken one she could find and said, that says it's north, let's go that way, even though it was pointing due south. In what ways does this case kind of shed light on how we perceive mental health in our society, considering the extremes that she went to, yet how she was able to present herself in many ways just as your average normal mom until she started talking about her religious beliefs?
Yeah, and we are in a major mental health crisis. Just the post-COVID years, it's really it's been a double-edged sword, I think, in some aspects. I think we've become much more accommodating and giving and caring about people that are suffering because of those COVID years, because everyone went through a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And if you had trauma going into it, exasperated that trauma. And so I think people are more forgiving right now of behaviors that are maybe socially off because of those things, but it allows people to hide in plain sight that are actually truly deviant, like the Vallow was. And so I think it's a kind of double-edged sword, but I think I'm definitely seeing the stigma of mental health falling away more and more. I think it's on a parabolic curve, really, of falling away just because people are suffering so much, and well-known people and people that when you can let go of the shame of things and society doesn't shame you, it's amazing the things you can solve in life. And I think that's what's happening is the de-shaming of mental health with a lot of people is helping people get fixed finally, I hope.
Hopefully. Do you feel like those years of COVID brought a lot of people to the surface? And Lori Vallow Daybell is not one of those cases, I believe. There's a lot of these things were going on before COVID. There was some during COVID, but I think she doesn't necessarily have the effect of COVID on this case. But I think there's many others that have popped up since that maybe otherwise wouldn't have gone to extremes that they did. But maybe the isolation, those bizarre years, did that exacerbate the world of people behaving horribly towards one another, especially when it comes to mental health and what one is capable of doing if they're not well?
100%. Our mental health as a biological organism really stems in two major areas. And that is, the first and foremost is our ability to connect with healthy relationships with others. We are social creatures. And when we are denied the ability to have good social interactions in person, Zoom is fantastic. What a gift it was compared to nothing. But it does not take the place of in-person. The power of in-person, the power of proximity is major. And the other aspect of it is problem solving. Boy, I think it really exasperated, as we've seen in so many of these cases. People have lost the ability to work a problem society wide, and they go from 0 to 100, 0 to freak out, 0 to I don't know what to do, so I'll just start shooting. It seems like extremely rapidly, instead of just sitting back instead of asking why me and playing the victim and thinking of themselves as the world against them, and so I'm going to take retribution against the world, just asking themselves, what exactly can I do to solve this problem? And so I think you have those two things exasperated together, is that social isolation, which destroys our mental health, our lack of ability to really problem solve like we used to be able to do and innovate, because innovation only comes when we feel safe in our environment. And so we've had a number of years of not feeling very safe for whatever reasons those are. And there's multitudes of them. But I think those have been really highlighted in the last bunch of years, without a doubt.
Does the case highlight any gaps when they look back on this in terms of law enforcement reviewing this and protecting children? Because there were many months here between saying, where are your kids, to actually forcing her to show up with her kids, which she obviously did not do and then was investigated. Is this situation something that one can look back on and go, you know what, this is how we did it then, but we need to be able to get ahead of the game on this and not basically let someone like this win and get ahead of law enforcement and end up taking the kids out before they can be found?
I hope so. It's anytime we face anything in society for the first time and it's catastrophic, very rarely do we go back and make the same mistake twice. I've used 9/11 as a reference for this. I'm hard pressed to think anyone's ever going to be able to hijack a plane like happened during 9/11, because that was so profoundly impactful about how they did what they did to destroy lives and destroy mental health, that it can't happen again. And so I'm hoping that the same thing happens here when we see the shameful pain that's been inflicted on children. And you and I have talked about the foster system in particular. I am very hopeful that now that people see that some damage can be done and prevented early on, I'm hoping this starts more of a process. If you see something, say something. And now that we're taking a closer look at the impact of this on children in homes, they're going to say something. Just in school districts, I think across the country right now, they're seeing they need to make a change about the interaction that they're having with children in a positive way in this light. So I'm hoping. But hey, the pendulum swing. And I think the pendulum was way on the side of negative impact on families and children because of these past bunch of years. But I think because of this heightened pain that we've been through, hopefully that pendulum is swinging back the other way now.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Brueski.